very, very much. Apology to start off with. I was the child at school who grew up with a really bad stammer, and even this number of people frightens the living daylights out of me, so bear with me. I will do my absolute best and hopefully show something that is worth showing. So Content Hub, CMP, with XP, or XM actually, integrations and improvements. So where did we start from? So we started from, 2 years into a 5-year cycle with an XP site, 3 tenants in the site, 14 sites across the tenant, at least 100,000 individual pages in the largest site, external search integration, not just from within the Sitecore instances, but across the whole organization. So data was surfaced across the organization. Very, very heavy use of branch templates, and obviously all the other things you get out of XM, so page workflow, that nice editorial experience. We had data items all over the site. This had been previously engineered, architected, not using the Sitecore for tagging, but instead, data items feeding into fields, which fed as a taxonomy into the search. This is the start. So it was not greenfield. We could not start with our Content Hub. We could not have that flow that just in that way. So what did we need? We needed to use CMP as a full-on WYSIWYG editing tool, almost a lightweight CMS ahead of the XM CMS. We needed our taxonomy managed across both systems, some to be managed in Content Hub, others needed to be still managed in the XP instance and fed up to the CMP instance. Examples of this would be, we would have pages which we used as data sources for other pages, long established. This needed to be maintained as part of the workflow. We had to have single responsibility. That's probably the wrong term. A single point of truth, single source of truth for every single field in every single item, be that CMP and Content Hub, or be that XP. And we needed to create one workflow out of all of this. So obviously Sitecore gives us a connector. Out of the box, what can it do? Well, it can bring across the text fields. Yes, it gives you the taxonomies, but it gives you it in one of 2 ways. It brings in fields from a taxonomy into a text field separated by commas, pipes, however you want to do that, or it brings it into the Sitecore tagging engine, neither of which matched what we needed. And it only will create items based on standard templates. Our whole site was and is based on branch templates. So we needed to expand that, almost make it that the page itself was a data item. So produce pages in CMP rather than just the data, content. So this left us with a bit of a feature gap. We needed to be able to import into also templates and branches. We needed to link the taxonomies between both systems. We needed to integrate workflow between the 2 systems. We couldn't allow, as happens by default, overwriting of items. We had to maintain the Sitecore versioning. So a new item comes from CMP, to an item that is potentially pushed down the pipe, is published. We cannot overwrite that. We need the extra control in place all the way down there. And as part of the single source of truth, when an item comes across from CMP, that the relevant bits of data that make up that page need to become editor-proof in XP, in XM. So if that needs to be changed, that has to go back to CMP, be changed by the original author of this item, pushed back down the pipe, and then surfaced on the website, having been through that additional workflow. So first sort of challenge was figuring out what to do with the many hundreds of taxonomy sources we already had built into the XP solution. So we had to produce an export pipeline. I don't know why I've written a generic sentence there. We needed to link that up with the import sort pipeline. So when you export an item and you link those two things in CMP, those two things come across, correctly link within your XP sort of data, and therefore link out to the website. And we needed to support pages as taxonomies. So page types within XP feed your taxonomies in CMP. If I get the initials the wrong way around, it's just, there's far too many 2 and 3 letter acronyms in this industry. I apologize for this. Just feel free to throw something at me if I get it too badly wrong. So first off, going to look at how we looked at the taxonomies. Now, just as a word of warning, this is live, so if it goes wrong, it's the fault of the hotel Wi-Fi. If it works, I will happily take all of the plaudits. So we create the taxonomies we want. We create them as definitions in CMP, and we just scooch down here. We create export. Perfect. Never, ever, ever do live sort demos. We create export mappings within Sitecore. So we have location export, and if you've worked with the CMP import, you'll recognize some of these fields. We've added a few more, but ultimately it maps down to your Sitecore, so your template in Sitecore, your entity schema in CMP, a few fields or definitions, and then a few things to support language mappings between the two systems. And similar to the import, we have field mappings. So, fields in those map to field items in CMP. So let me just switch that one on. And let me do the exact same with the grouping. So as we come back across to here, we see this is just an empty definition. We can, using the export, we can plug these two things together. Again, this is a very, very limited, just a skeleton site almost to show the process. So we use the export, tie it together with a bit of PowerShell, who save all of our lives on a regular basis. And we can send this thing up, and we can tie these two data sources together. So hopefully this won't take more than a few seconds. And if everything is connected up correctly, we should start to see things appearing in there. Wonderful. First bit of live demo, thank God for that. Hopefully I've got the number right so it doesn't take overly long. And then we get, obviously, the results of the import in there, so you can report upon that, and this all works. Once these things are in there, we then want to manage the taxonomies within CMP, by and large. So we also have a taxonomy import mapping. And I'll just switch everything over. so this becomes active. If you have the two things active at once, you kind of sort of kill XP in double quick order. Let me just switch that on. Hopefully that's saved. And we can then, from within the taxonomies, I'll just refresh this. Hopefully this has dropped everything to where it needs to be. So far, so good. I will just add an item under here. And I'll save this, and what we should see, we've now switched the mapping over. This is now a data field owned by Content Hub, owned in CMP. So now any changes that happen at that side should now map across into here, and thank God for that. So we can take all of our items from XP, drop them into CMP, all automatic. It's tied together. It should populate the entity identifier, which is what happens out of the default connector, which ties a CMP item against the XP item. And thus far, every single time I've got those the right way around. So far, so good. So that is taxonomies, obviously, in reality, hundreds rather than a set of 6, but that's a lot less painful than attempting to figure out and do this thing manually. It keeps the two things in sync. Next challenge, branch or templates. So out the box, for those who have known it, and I've already said, it comes across, it does a flat level data item for intention to use as data sources within your pages, not pages in its entirety. So ultimately where we've ended up and where we wanted to go was CMP becomes a lightweight CMS, which feeds the main CMS, in this case XP, and then drops into the XP system. So we need to be able to spin out a page based on a branch. You need to then set up local and shared data items, and we need to be able to import assets in a more editorial-friendly way. So let me just quickly show this, and I will show why it had to be more editorial-friendly. So we have here, see if it's managed to log me out. It hasn't yet. Wonderful. This is our a demo CMP instances, and it has the wonderful habit of logging you out on like a 5-minute basis. So you switch off a tab for a few seconds and you come back and you have to re-sign in. So this is, I'll quickly show how this works if you want to link an asset out of the box. So we have just a demonstration item here. Doesn't matter what it is. And if we want to link an asset against this, you quickly find the correct place. Where's it gone? Related media. Couldn't see the wood for the trees. This is what you get if you want to bring an asset across with your content. Yes, it works, but try saying to an editor who is producing some sort of content, select the appropriate image and giving that. Definitely not a CMS experience. So let's switch to the one that we have with the nicer flow of images. I've pre-entered a load of text here. So what you get is you can use CMP rich text fields to bring in assets. Let me delete this. it gives you this, which is the CMP, which is the DAM window you would get if you link to Sitecore DAM out of the box. Again, I'll pick something I would never have anything to use, so I'll again re-pick something to do with hair. Put that in. So you get that nice WYSIWYG, that interface. This you can say so to an editor. Pick the image, great. Go, browse, get that visual feedback. It gives you much closer to what your end result will look like, rather than selecting a linked asset, browsing through a list of names that often make very little sense. So if I save this, so we have this in there now, and obviously we've extended the import mappings because all those items won't work. So while I'm down here, just to show what we do, I will turn this mapping on. So we add in a bunch of sort of templates like this, basically mirroring and extending what we get out of the box, but allow us to select local data sources and/or obviously global data sources, should you wish. So when that comes across, we spin up the branch, we drop things into the branch, we have a page. Let me just refresh. Apologies, I picked the wrong item out of that. That one is already in a published phase. This is the one. I want a helpfully named sort of demo that I then managed to look straight past. So this one is early in the ideation stage. It has everything filled in that should be. It's in the correct workflow state. So we bring this in through the CMP workflow, which is just configured through the GUI in CMP. This drops into the service bus, goes via wherever this goes via, and then a bit of luck by the time I get there, should have created yes, it has. Wonderful. The item in XP. So it's brought in this, but over and above that, from the branch template, it has spun out the whole page. So we don't just have a flat data item, we have the whole page as an asset in CMP. So we can bring all listing across. So that's two of our challenges dealt with. Next off, we have editorial control. So when we bring things across, the data that's come from CMP is still owned by the author in CMP. This should not be changed by anyone in the XP side of things. So we need to lock those down. But when it gets from the XP stage, your editors, your marketeers, they want to be able to edit the look and feel. So they want to be able to apply, if you're using the classes, apply whatever they want, just not change the data. And obviously, lastly, we need to enforce versioning. So on all the import items we saw, we have the ability to lock fields we've brought across. So what this allows us to then do is have that single point of of ownership. So fields we bring in, we lock down. Fields that are not across, of course, are editable in both experience editor and in content editor. So what this allows you to do, what this allows the editor to do, is obviously as things are if they wish, add other, knew it was going to happen eventually, add other components in. So therefore, they have ownership of some things. CMP has ownership of other things. Now, in reality, of course, you would not just have a bit of rich text and enter the text. I can change this, but that's exactly what I'm going to do. So this gives, and as we see this, you can't change the text, but should the switch be so personalized, whatever the editor wants to do, bar change the original source of the data. Nice. So it comes across, it works. So we then have workflow. So you've created an item in CMP. It's in the ready to publish phase. It's across there, it's in the CMS. So effectively, we've created a lightweight CMS here, given them a visual way of authoring the content. Drops into your XP or XM instance, where it gets further manipulated upon. We then need ways to either say, dial back to the original author and go, okay, you need to change some stuff, or we need to let them know everything's fine and it's going through the pipeline and it is going to appear on the website. So we can add in workflow actions. Again, all this is just out of the box. All this just dials back to the CMP, or the DAM rather, the API, updating the relevant information based upon the item we have brought in. So in this case, I just have an in progress action, and this will dial back, and it will update the workflow state to that field. And we also want to say, use a notes field to pass information backwards and forwards. So smoothing out that sort of pipeline. So hopefully, 2 live demos thus far. Light sort of demos, fair enough, granted. Work, let's take this one down and see if this should dial back, and it should, if I get the correct tab, update this information within here. Obviously, we don't have notifications switched on in CMP, but in reality, on a workflow state change in CMP, you can trigger all sorts of goodness, and you can then effectively send, you could send an email, you could do whatever you want on assigning the workflow state, and it has, I knew this would happen eventually, it has logged me out. So we see that status has been changed. Your editor has an email saying everything is going through, and that can happen all the way down the pipeline. So passing the notes back, when it is published, you can send them an ultimate email saying, okay, all done. Here's the URL of the page of the content you submitted on the website. And finally, sort of versioning. So we've published this, and the author wants to update something with it's a news article for sake of argument. They want to just change something, send that back down with some extra information, a correction, an update. We do not want to just overwrite this in XP. We want to version this. We want that version history. We want the stuff that makes this thing nice, that makes XP nice. We don't want to overwrite the original. So as I'm feeling really original, I will just do that. And we can send this down again. And rather than just overwrite, let me just refresh this. What we should get is version 2 overwritten. Version 2 so created with the updates on data. Version 1 left exactly as is. So you have that continuity, the ownership of this item. If you update this item and it is published, next publish that covers this item, updates straight on the website without any oversight from any marketeers, any editors at this level. This then allows us to say, okay, you have the CMP flow, you have the XP flow. We can tie these two things together however we wish. And I've gone a little bit faster than I originally intended, a lot faster than I originally intended. So thank you very much. And thank you to all these guys too.
All right, do we have any questions?
It was really interesting, thank you. I was like, I've wanted to see somebody using CMP in this way, for structured content and whatnot. I'm just curious, like, what was the value for them to abstract the content entry and management that way, rather than just doing it in XM? Like, what's the use case for that?
The use case for this was the client was in a position where you had a hardcore of XM editors. Maybe, we're talking a massive multinational, so a handful of people in each service area, and we wanted to scale this out. So the ideation to publications or process was kind of, somebody would send an email with, I want to publish this news article. It would go backwards and forwards. They'd already invested in Sitecore DAM, or M as it was previously known in its previous incarnation. So they had this stuff. CMP came out about a year ago-ish. And it was the opportunity to leverage that to get rid of this cumbersome email process and effectively use CMP, as I've said, as a lightweight, in air quotes, CMS, and push it through that way. So rather than, like I say, just to get rid of all your emails backwards and forwards overhead, to provide more traceability, a nice system for the level 1 editors. I'm not quite sure how to describe the process, but the ideation and the text editors, I should probably say. It's probably
So the team's writing content, not necessarily CMS savvy. They don't want to have to log into XM and navigate the tree. They just want to write the content and push the button.
Exactly. They just want to write the content and send it down the pipe. They don't care that by the time it gets onto the website, the person in XP has added, a component that shows related items, that links back to the items of, the top news articles. They don't, I'm not saying that they don't care, but they don't want to think about that. They just want to go, I've got this news article. Right. I want it on the website. This is probably someone up in the C-suite who just says, we have this press release, we want it to go out, drops the text in, and it goes out. They don't care about all the nuts and bolts and the more detailed editing that goes on in XM/XP.
Got it. So it's about streamlining workflow and, just generally like scalability.
Exactly.
Excellent.